These symptoms are usually reversible if treatments are started on time. That is why stroke awareness is very important. You know that the brain controls the whole body. Welcome to my stroke world. And if you're just meeting me for the first time, my name is Ada Ame and I am a stroke survivor. I will be giving a mini tutorial or a crash course on stroke. Common things to expect when you're talking about stroke. I'll be briefly talking about the etiologies of stroke, which will help you understand the workup and the small differences in their treatment. I'd like to point out that we all have different focal deficits depending on the part of the brain affected. Someone like me who had a damage on my cerebellum, I will not display the same symptoms with someone who had damage on their brainstem, his or her cerebrum. Now, when there is an interruption of blood supply to the brain, either through an occlusion or a rupture of blood vessels in the brain, these brain cells in the brain, which are responsible for our functions, and they either get damaged or they die. This will produce neurodeficits depending on the location of the brain affected, and that's when it is said that someone is having a stroke. The term stroke was conceived from the idea of receiving a strike or a blow. You know how it happens suddenly? That's how strokes happen. Strokes can either be caused by a bleed or a blockage. Remember when I said that there's either an occlusion or a rupture of a blood vessel? That leads to the main types of strokes. So strokes are subdivided into two. We have the ischemic strokes and we have the hemorrhagic strokes. 85% of strokes are ischemic, while 15% are hemorrhagic. An ischemic stroke in summary is a blockage, and a hemorrhagic stroke is that there is a bleed. I would explain these two strokes properly in a separate video. Before I forget, we also have mini strokes, and they are also known as TIAs, which is transit ischemic stroke. These are strokes that occur and are resolved within 24 hours. I think sometime last year, Justin Bieber's wife also had a TIA. Now I'll be talking about how to identify and act quickly when you or someone around you is having a stroke. If you suspect a stroke, you need to act fast. Identifying that the victim is having a stroke this point is a very crucial point because it improves the chances of the victim surviving and getting better, because remember, the more time wasted, the more brain cells that are lost, and the more brain cells that are lost equates to more loss of function, or the victim may not be able to survive. Now there are 5 steps to evaluation and treatment of that stroke patient once he or she arrives at the hospital, which I'll be talking about separately in a different video. Once you get to the hospital, there will be an urgent scan of the person's brain, which will ascertain where was affected and what kind of stroke occurred. I don't know if you remember, but I said earlier that the different kind of strokes require different treatment. Now, after the survivor has had a stroke, he or she may exhibit symptoms depending on the part of the brain affected and the amount of brain cells lost. These symptoms are usually reversible if treatments are started on time, and that is why stroke awareness is very important, because it can save a lot of lives. You can never compare someone who had a stroke and was able to get medical treatment within few hours and someone who was able to get medical treatment 48 hours. The person was able to identify that he or she was having a stroke within few hours, and someone who had waited for more than 48 hours to even know that he or she was having a stroke to get treatment. These two symptoms can never be the same. The earlier you identify that you're having a stroke, the earlier you start neuro rehabilitation, which is very important, because at that point, that's where neuroplasticity comes in. At that point, your brain is trying to adapt, your brain is trying to make up for these lost brain cells.